Hello and welcome to SciFit. My name is Brendan. Now, I put this video together because I've had a number of parents ask me for help in regard to their teens. So some of you know me through the gym, through my SciFit business, and through small group training. And to answer some questions, yes, I am a real psychologist. And so, which some people have been a bit puzzled over. So, during the day, I work as a psychologist. I'm currently working in a high school setting, so working with teens every day around some of the big stuff that goes on in their lives. So, around managing their mood, stress, sleep, relationships, and general worries in terms of their mental health. So, that's how I normally spend my day. And by evening, I'm hanging out usually with their mums doing some small group training, which I really love. So I thought I'd give you guys a bit of an overview about how we can work together to help overcome depression, anxiety in teens. It's one of the key issues we see impacting our young people, and it's really far-reaching. So it affects all aspects of their life, and we see some really talented, exceptional young people whose results and sort of ambitions sort of go down the tube a little bit until they can get their mood back in check. So I'm just going to go through some things that can help you and just show you some ways and tools that I can use with your teen to help if you think it's a good fit. All right, so let's go. So what we're going to go over, what's right with your teen. That's a really, really important frame to cover. I think us through some turbulent times for teens, some effective treatments, and also some effective treatment alternatives that I use for teens. So my approach is a little bit different than if you were to go and see another psychologist. We all work slightly differently, and I found that approach that I find quite helpful. So part of what you can decide is whether you think that's going to work for you and for your teen. All right, so what's right with you? Most of the time we get really, really, really caught up with what's going wrong. I spoke to a parent just recently where they were going through, there's this, and then there's this. I'm worried that they're not eating right. I'm worried that they're not sleeping. I'm worried that they're really stressed out. I'm worried about what they're accessing on social media and what they're posting and what image that's going to convey of themselves and what happens when they go for a job and how's that going to look on them. And they were doing really well academically, and now things are falling behind for them. And they've recently been diagnosed with anxiety, and then they're worrying about the anxiety, and then they're getting stressed out about that. So it's really, really, really easy to get caught up on all the dramas that can go on. And so it's really important in that time to think about what's going right for our young people. I'm a big believer that we already possess what we need to be great, and that our young people have got a whole lot of internal resources that we really need to be mindful of tapping into to help them get where they want to be. And your teens will need extra reminding of that. So we'll know they've got resources internally that they've drawn upon so far in their life. Sometimes it's really easy for them to forget that, and it's part of our job as the loving adults around them to remind them. Okay, so unleash your superpower. We all have superpowers. If I get to work with you when you're a young person, we'll help find out what those superpowers are, and most importantly, how you can leverage and use those superpowers. That I do that with my work with adults. I do that with my work with young people. It's super important to find out what is going well and what the superpowers are and how we can leverage them and use them. Okay, I'm not moody. One of the young person I was working with recently said that her friends affectionately call her bipolar bitch. And I thought, wow, that's a bit harsh, but she found that as a term of endearment. But what she was saying was that I can go from really times where I feel really, really low and really flat to times where I'm super crazy and angry and just quite out of control. And she's still, only just starting to work with her. And part of that is how do we help to lower the highs and the lows so that things are a bit more of an even keel. So being moody or having those really flat times and really high times are really, really normal for teens, especially when we look at so much going on in terms of brain chemistry, in terms of hormone changes, in terms of stress and social pressures and things. So there's a whole lot going on for our teens, and so to be moody is really, really normal. And we're trying to look at how we can just help reduce the range of the highs and lows, so things are a bit more even. One of the places where I would start is that most young people tell me that they can't quieten their mind, and that's a really, really important first step for all of us, but particularly for our teens to be able to think about what's going to be important and what am I going to work on first. Okay, one of the bits in terms of when you're looking for help for your teen is often we think, well, I know they need to work on their stress management, or I think they need to work on, they've got anxiety, and so they need to work on that, or they've got depression. One of the common issues we're seeing now, much more commonly than before, was besides gender and sexuality, which has been a really big one, but also food and in terms of eating disorders or disordered eating, and that's a really big one. So parents can get worried about a whole lot of things, and sometimes what we forget is just to ask and check in with that young person and say, hey, what would you like to focus on? And I'm always surprised that about when I map things out with young people and we say, look, where would you like to start? I'm still surprised in terms of what they suggest, and it's really important that we listen to that. So it's usually not the same as what you and their teachers would say. So it's really helpful to be clear about what do you think your young person needs, and even more important, what does your child and young person think that they need? Okay. So it's hard to tell with all those things, with food, with mood, with family, with friends, with stress, with body image, with what do I do with my life. I heard a young person just say, like we might say, I don't know what to wear today. A young person said, I just don't know what to do with my life. So it's really, really hard to know where to start. So when working with young people, what I found really helpful is to map out and just put all the areas of their life that either they're concerned about, what's working well, what's their concerns and worries, and just to map it all out. What I found is that this helps them feel really understood, and often when you sit back and have a look at it, young people are going, no wonder I feel stressed out, no wonder I feel anxious, and no wonder I feel depressed. So it's really important to help. I found it a really important step to help map out. And also, once we've got that mapped with your young person, we then share that with you. And this is one of the key differences to how I would work a bit different to other psychologists, is that it's not the secret squirrel stuff that we whisk your child away and do stuff that you don't know what's going on about. It's a collaborative process. So once we map it out, we help share that with you. I'll talk with your child about how we can share that with you, and that is a way of engaging you and also helping sometimes you be reassured that yes, we're working on some stuff, but this is what your teen has put first, and also that your child knows, you know what, mum or dad might get off my case about this or this because we're going to be working on these things first. So it kind of takes the pressure off for them as well. Okay, so there's three really key elements in terms of what are effective treatments for young people. First of all, I find that a team or a collaborative-based approach works far, far better than having your child whisked off to a psychologist when they sit in a room and do stuff that you've got no idea about what they're working on. So especially with parents and their teens, because parents will always say my kid's out of control and they don't talk to me and I don't know what's going on in their world, and teens will always say my parents don't understand me and they're trying to restrict and stop everything that I take all of the enjoyment out of my life. What little enjoyment I have in my life, my parents are trying to take away from me. So a team approach is really, really helpful in terms of reducing some of the conflict and angst at home, and also helping your child know that, the family we're on board with this and we're working together on this. Okay, it's a team sport. One of the other key elements is it's really important that we teach skills that can help your young person now and in the future, whether that be study skills, etc. You'll know there's no such thing as a person that's just mentally healthy or just resilient or just really good at maths. What it is that they've learned effective strategies to help them in that area. So it's really important that any treatment that you're looking at has a skill-based or a teaching focus. The other is that it's accessible. One of the key issues we have with young people, even some really, really high needs young people, is that they often don't get to access the help that they really need. Part of that is that life gets in their way and they can't get to appointments, or sometimes mood is particularly flat, and when appointments are scheduled, they miss them, and then it means that they're missing out. So I find that there are some really key benefits to having appointments accessible in terms of an online component, so that you and your young person can work out what's going on and can also work on things even if you can't get to your face-to-face appointments. All right, so there's a little bit on this slide. I'm just going to go through some effective treatments. And so young people, I talk now to you, and sometimes when people come to your parents will say, oh, let's go and see a psychologist, and you're like, oh, what the hell's going on? I don't particularly want to go, and often you get dragged kicking and screaming to see some random person that you really didn't particularly want to. So the first thing I'll do when I work with you is get to look at, I'll go through a series of questions to help find out what's your superpower, and really important, where you've been able to use that superpower before, how you'd like to use it, and how you can use that superpower in the future. Most of the time they're all hidden, and we just need to get the shovel and dig a little bit and find out what those superpowers are. And second of all, we'd map out what's going on for you, and more importantly, what are we going to sort first? What would you like to work through first? What I'd really like to know is, how would you know and how would I know if our time together is effective? And we'll set some goals around how that would look. So you might say, well, our time would be spent together. If our time together was effective, Brendan, this or this would need to happen, or this and this would need to look different. And that gives me an idea about how I can best help you. What we'll do that might be a little bit different if you were going to see another psychologist. We'll then talk with your parent about how they can best support you. And that's really, really important, because that helps them get off your case a little bit and know that you're going to be getting the support that you need. Okay. Number 5 is that I'll give you weekly access to some education sessions. So I use an online platform which uses some comic-based stuff and some activities. So there is a little bit of homework. There's no free passes from homework, but this is going to help you fill your toolbox. It's going to be homework that you want to do, because it's going to help give you some tools to help you out with whatever is going on for you. So if it's around stress or anxiety or depression or sleep, you'll be getting some tools to help you manage those and monitor those. Okay. Really importantly, leading on to that, number 6 was about some tools to help track that stuff. There's no point worrying about stuff if we don't actually know what's happening. And sometimes when we look through things, we might find that, we thought it was, we thought I was experiencing anxiety or I was really depressed. But you know what? You were just not sleeping well and you're really tired and grumpy. So it's really important to track first what's going on so that we can make some sense of it. And then we'd meet up each week where we go through some of your homework from the online stuff and some of the activities that you've been working through. And then we look at how your mood, food, sleep, stress are tracking along, depending on which one you wanted to focus on. And then we look at what's our plan for the next week. So that's in a nutshell how we would work together. And the amount of parent involvement from your point is based on what you're comfortable with. What I have found is that when we share information with your parents, generally things go a lot better for you and they get off your case and things become a little easier at home. Okay, so back to parents now. So one of the things that I use is called the Teen Strong program. Now that's generally for 14, 15, 16. There is a mixed depression and anxiety course for 16 plus, and so we will talk, and I'll talk with you and your teen about what's going to be most appropriate for you there. So these courses are developed by the University of New South Wales in partnership with St Vincent's Hospital and CRUFAD, the Clinical Research Unit for Anxiety and Depression. They are a clinic that's university hospital-based clinic that have found these elements work really well together when we can teach them to young people. So they've taken all the really effective elements, put that into a course and modularised that so that now we can get that. So you can't access that independently. For your young people, it needs to be overseen by a clinician such as myself, and they work through sequentially through 6 weeks